Um, so welcome to the November 4th Porter community meeting. Today we're going to be going over our CNCF Sandbox annual review. This is what we're going to give to the TOC later today and kind of give them an update on how the project is doing and essentially justify why we should continue to be in the CNCF. So this is what I'll be submitting to them. We have it's okay. There'll be a couple of key metrics they're interested in. As you can see, our GitHub stars has gone up, our forks have gone up, which is great. And we're finally tracking downloads so that we can see how many people are installing Porter over time. It seems like a pretty healthy number. It's total though since April of 2021. I don't quite know how to get, for example, month over month download stats out of GitHub, but if anyone else does, that would be, really useful too. As you saw me silently scrolling a little bit ago, we also have dev stats, and this is what the TOC looks at as well to see that we kind of have consistent activity over time. They're interested in our maintainers, specifically how many do we have, and is there a healthy distribution of maintainers across companies? Like, i.e., they don't really want to see it to be all one company. We'd like to see some mix there. Not all of our maintainers are active. So we're looking for more maintainers. If anyone is interested in becoming a reviewer, for example, that's really the first step, is you can offer to help review areas of code that you're familiar with. Maybe you've done a couple PRs on the CLI, you've done a couple PRs maybe for mixins or something else like that. Chat with us and we can make you a reviewer for those areas. Anyone can review at any time, actually. You can always review. But if you become an official reviewer for a piece of code, you can approve it to be merged. And that'd be really helpful because at the moment it's myself and Vaughn who are active and able to review PRs. And that kind of makes it hard to get like a lot of code through quickly and still get quality reviews. So if anyone is interested, please reach out. You can start, like I said, small, just on a certain area of code, and you'll be like, I know this one directory in the code base, that's enough. And then over time, you can work up to maybe being a maintainer for one of the repos, like a mixin repo, or eventually for all of core once you're familiar with most of Porter and how it works. Adoption has been pretty good, though we're still struggling to get people to list their name in our official adopters list. So if I open this up here, we have two obviously Microsoft, that's who pays me to work on Porter. And then we have Think Texture as well, has listed themselves, which is great. Unofficially, we know of quite a few more companies who are using Porter. And we think that more people will be willing to put their name on the list after we hit 1.0 and it's really production ready. So fingers crossed on that. If you know a company, if you're using Porter and you're willing to put your name on the list, it helps keep us in the CNCF. So it's worth doing if just for that. So for the past year, we didn't really have any official goals. This is our first year in the CNCF, but we were working on trying to reach out to companies and find out who's using Porter and getting their names on the list or on an unofficial private list I may have on my laptop. And I really do want to just stress again that we're getting close to the 1.0 release of Porter. We're about halfway there through our milestone. And once that's out, I think that'll really help us out quite a bit because people will be able to use it in prod, which is kind of what the adopters list is all about. We've also made significant progress on the Porter operator. The Porter operator, we have a version of it working now with the V1 pre-release of Porter. So it's ready for people to try out. But again, it's not really for production use yet. I will say that everyone who wants to use Porter, they want the operator. So we need to get rolling on that. The CNCF Tech Docs group, I chatted with them last week and they're willing to do a review of our website and our documentation. And they're going to help us kind of improve it, find gaps, and just make it easier for people to get onboarded and be successful with Porter. So I think this will be really helpful for us. And we're not ready for incubation yet. We're going to stay in Sandbox longer and try to build up our user base and, like I said, get production ready essentially. So that's honestly all I had. I don't know if there were things that people were interested in chatting about, or if you all had thoughts on our annual review here. Maybe we can trick Josh into saying he wants to be a maintainer.
Yeah, I definitely interested, but I think it's still far away. Like, I'm still learning things, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that I so far I only tried to, you know, get do kind of smaller issues, but I think
Mm-hmm.
I haven't got the grasp of how the overall architecture of the whole Porter repos. So I'm really actually interested if somehow we can get the architecture page on the Porter documentation to be updated. So maybe I can also learn a thing or two from that.
Yeah, if you would, are you offering to maybe help make the architecture page more accurate?
Oh no, I mean like because the architecture the architecture page is still written on to do, right? So yeah, actually I'm interested to see the finished version of that so I can learn the whole architecture of the Porter and get a better understanding of that.
Yeah, yeah. It may be interesting actually to go over Porter's architecture in maybe the next meeting. And then we can kind of generate that doc, you know, as part of that. I think that may help. And then you'd be able to ask questions live and really help ensure that the doc isn't just whatever I think people need to know, but, you know, would include things that you all thought to ask during the screen share. So I'd be happy to do that at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think if I could ask another thing that I'm
Yeah.
interested in is that I'm curious for other CNCF projects, like how do they usually find uh, companies or institutions to adopt the projects? Is it usually from the session that the maintainer held, that the maintainer had perhaps at the KubeCon or the Cloud Native Con, or perhaps there are other channels for people to know about the project?
Yeah. So the CNCF doesn't help promote and market a project until they're in the next phase, which is incubation. So at the moment, the best way for people to find out about Porter um, is through us talking about it on social media. If anyone does a talk or creates a blog post, things like that, those are things that we can put out there and help raise awareness. Um, in general, the way a lot of companies get involved with a project, to be honest, is they either help start it and it was a group effort to begin with, or they end up using it and therefore paying people to contribute to it, and then they're really kind of involved at that point. It's really not uncommon for CNCF projects, though, to struggle to move from essentially having a single company being involved at the maintainer level to trying to entice other companies to really sponsor the project and have people work on it during as part of their job essentially. um, So it's not, what we're dealing with isn't uncommon. So if anyone ever has a video you'd like to make, a blog post, just a like a demo bundle that shows how things work, I can help signal boost that and get that out to more people for them to see. Um, but otherwise, I don't really know how to get it in front of people who aren't already paying attention to the cloud native space. You know, if you have ideas, I'd be happy to chat about that.
Yeah, I don't want to like the intention of kind of putting pressure. I just want to ask like for the uh ladder, I think on the project ladder of the CNCF, like the sandbox, incubation, and graduation,
Mm-hmm.
do projects have kind of certain metrics to achieve or time deadline? Like if you're in sandbox for too long and then still on below some kind of adopters and stars, then you can't be in the CNCF projects anymore.
Yeah, no. So we can be in Sandbox forever. We just need to stay active. So
I
that's
see.
fine. Let's see. I don't have it off the top of my head. I think that in order to move to incubating, you need a certain number of adopters on your adopter list. But if we come here and we look at, is it in the process? Let's see. One of these says it. Says how to get in. What is it? Graduation criteria. There we go. So this outlines, and let me paste this so that if y'all want to look at it too. This
Okay.
outlines what was necessary to get into the sandbox, which is essentially, filling out a form and be willing to hand over IP. To get into incubating, we actually need to be used in production by 3 independent end users. And that's why we're trying to build up that adopters.md, right?
Right.
And these actually have a good number of committers. It can't just be like one person dragging the project along. Um, we already have things like a clear versioning scheme. We're missing documented security processes for how to handle, for example, security disclosures. And then we're not a specification, so that doesn't matter. So I think we could, but what we're lacking is adopters and a more stable base of contributors and maintainers that aren't just from one company.
I see.
Uh, Sorry. So Carolyn, my team is actually starting to ramp up on this a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
know you've been working with Brian Geeter on some of his stuff. We've been working with him.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually got a meeting with our open source office or whatever to figure out how we're gonna what the process is for us to be involved with this.
Yeah,
Um, so we're hopefully gonna start contributing here in the shorter term at least.
that would be great. And if anyone isn't sure how to get started, feel free to just reach out to me. The idea in general is just to make contributions where you can show up to this meeting, obviously, because it really helps to coordinate, or chatting on Slack on where you'd like to work so that we can make sure that um, like all the designs are complete and we've figured out where we want to go in any particular direction. Um, and then after you've done a couple PRs, the next step would be to eventually get to the point where you could review areas of Porter itself and then work your way up to the maintainer through doing reviews. Um, and you don't have to be a maintainer for all of Porter. We have some people who are maintainers just for docs, for example, or just for mix-ins that they're interested in, like just the Helm mix-in. So it doesn't have to be like you have to eat the whole cake, or not at all. You can just work on a particular area that is relevant to your company.
Sounds good.
All right. Were there any other questions or things you all wanted to cover before we closed?
I don't think I have any more.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Apologies for talking quietly to myself at the beginning of this meeting. But I'm glad you stuck through it because I think this still was really worthwhile. Hopefully I'll see you in the next couple weeks.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.